At the end of my first day, I remember sitting in the honey wagon with my mom and going, I want to do this for the rest of my life. And here I am, 10 years later, still doing it.
Wow.
You are Erik Lingvall, and this is the Unscene Work.
Guest today is Danielle Rose Russell. Danielle and I had a wonderful conversation talking about everything from starting her little career as a dancer at 3 years old to acting in TV and film at 13, what it was like to work opposite Liam Neeson, what it was like to spend 5 seasons working on a show like Legacies. Danielle has been in a variety of projects, most notably as Hope Michelson in the CW's hit show Legacies. Danielle was also in Aloha opposite Bradley Cooper and Emma Stone, directed by Cameron Crowe. She can be seen in Wonder. The list goes on. Basically, Danielle has spent the vast majority of her life acting in front of the camera. And it's a really cool journey that we got to explore, get curious about, talking about everything from being a child actor to following your intuition. And I hope you guys enjoy this episode as much as I did. Okay, so Danielle.
Hi.
Hi, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So you are here because when I was talking to some of our tapers, our taping associates, as we call them,
Yes.
I was asking them, I said, hey, who are some people that you guys have worked with recently who you think would be really cool guests on the Unseen Work? And your name came up a couple of times, which is fun.
I'm flattered. Yeah, it's really fun. Been here a lot.
Yeah, and so obviously you've had quite a career already as an actor, even though you're fairly young. Although based on the internet, we are both born in the 1900s.
We at least were born in the same century, yeah.
We were both born in the
Yes.
You more towards the end of it, me more towards...
But I do have 19.
You do have
in my
19.
birth year.
Yes.
So.
19 something, as do I. So,
Yeah.
so we have that in common.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Good.
Just two young individuals having a conversation.
Young individuals, yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so tell me a little bit about your journey, how you got into acting. What was it like? Do you remember a time, an age when you were like little, and you were like, "Oh, I want to do this," or was there something in your life that stands out as like that was kind of this moment?
You know, as a kid, because I started this when I professionally at 9, and
Wow.
so
And what professionally, in meaning that you were
like I started commercials and print and things like that, and really how I started was my mom. I had no idea what I was doing. I did regional theater as a kid, like at my school, but it was never anything serious. I never really expected anything to come out of it. And so my mom, I was in dance for a long time.
okay.
And so my mom was
So hold on, you're still 9, right?
I'm still 9.
You're talking about dance and all this. You know, I've been doing this, and like.
I was still 9, yes.
But at what point did you start doing all this other stuff? This regional dance and all? Because just so you know, that sounds like a lot for a normal aged person, let alone a 9-year-old.
Yeah, I was 9. I danced since I was about 3.
3.
My mom was a professional dancer.
So I have a 3-year-old.
Okay.
I can't imagine
Yeah.
what profession. I'm literally thinking of her in my mind right now.
Yeah.
What is professional 3-year-old dancing like?
Oh, it's not professional.
Okay.
It was no.
Okay,
it was
so this
like
kid
a local dance studio.
But that's what got your feet wet,
yes.
or your feet moving.
Yes.
If it was dance.
If it was
See what
dance.
I did there?
That was
That's a
good.
dad joke. Sorry, yeah.
But no. So my mom was a professional dancer.
Okay.
And she put me into dance. And I competitively danced for a while. And then one of the moms at the studio that I was dancing at had suggested to my mom, like, oh, your daughter has a good face. She should model, like it's a great way to save up for college. And my mom was kind of like, okay. And so this mother came to my elementary school and was like, we'll just take some like pictures of her and then you can send them out if you want. You don't have to if you don't want to. And so we took these like literal, like photos, like on a disposable camera or something, like really cheap.
Okay.
And we took these pictures against a brick wall. of my elementary school, and my mom sent them out to just a bunch of people, a bunch of labels that she got from the drama bookstore in Manhattan. And so I had gotten a couple of calls from agents and managers, and I signed with a manager who I'm still with today.
Wow. That's wild. That's not common. And this was a manager for everything, for
talent, yeah.
Talent manager. And this was where did you grow up?
New Jersey.
In New Jersey, that's right.
Based out of New York, professionally.
I see. Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
Yes.
So, okay, so you're in New York, New Jersey. You get a manager in New York from just blindly submitting pictures of you in front of a brick wall.
Yep.
And that manager then, how does that relationship start to build? What happens there?
Yeah, so she begins sending me on commercial calls and print jobs, and I had seen a lot of success in that. I worked quite a bit from 9 to 12 or so.
Okay.
And then...
Which is still funny.
Why?
It's just funny to think about this 9-year-old, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, because you are young, but you've had a lot of experience, and I just find it really fascinating because our industry is so different in that. I mean, I have in fact a client who, when she was 11, was making more than most lawyers make.
Yeah.
You know, and so
It is bizarre.
It's a wild world. The fact that so from 9 to 12, this little career is building. Okay, in New York.
New York, yeah.
Okay, and so tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I did a lot of commercials, like I said, and a lot of print work that I'm sure people could scour the internet and find somewhere. They're humiliating. But my manager at around 11 or so was like, I really want to start sending her out for, films and Broadway, and I think she should get some training. And I sort of really found my groove in just looking at scripts and auditioning. And at 12, I remember my manager saying, you kind of have to make the decision, are you really going to do this? Because you're getting older, you're going to become a teenager, and you might lose interest. So where does this relationship stand, between you and me? And I was like, I want to do this. I really want to, I want to do the thing. And
which at 12 years old, that's a pretty big, most 12-year-olds don't have to commit to much.
Yeah, I committed to
But that sounds like a pretty serious, so you recall that sitting down with your manager?
Yes.
Was your mom there too, or was it just you and your manager?
It was just me and my manager on the phone, actually.
Oh, okay.
And, she sort of just told me, do you want to? And I said, yeah, I do. And
can you talk about that a little bit? Because was there any hesitation, or was in your mind at that point, were you thinking, okay, I want to keep going with this?
I was. I mean, I didn't really know where it was going to take me. I just knew that I was having fun. And that's huge, I think, as a kid, as a child actor. I think there's a lot of scenarios where parents put their children in the industry and the children hate it and they don't want to do it and it's miserable for them, and it's really the parents who want it more than the kids. And that was not the case. I really got to make the decision for myself. And shortly thereafter, at around 13, I booked my first film. And it was a tiny little role. I think I had 2 words the whole film, but I worked with some really great people. And Liam Neeson, Scott Frank, who did Queen's Gambit and has gone on to do great things, David Harbour. And I learned a lot about being on set. I was very overwhelmed, but I remember my first day on set, and this is a pivotal moment I'm getting to, is that at the end of my first day, I remember sitting in the honey wagon with my mom and going, I want to do this for the rest of my life. And here I am, 10 years later, still doing it.
Wow.
It was a moment, though. It was a moment where I went I want this.
What do you think it was in terms of being there that day? What was it that where it catalyzed that moment? What was it about that experience?
It was just magical. It was just, that's the best way I can put it, is that it felt like magic. And that sounds really dramatic. But,
no, it doesn't. No.
But it really was. It just, my heart felt like this is what I meant to do. It really did. And it's, I don't know, that's what it was. And so, yeah, I did this film. And at the end of my shooting days, I remember sitting in that same honey wagon, bawling my eyes out, being like, I'm never going to work again. I'm so sad this is over. I love this so much. And And then a couple months later, I did a film called Aloha. And,
Right, with Bradley Cooper.
With Bradley Cooper.
Yeah.
And that was also, like, talk about a learning experience. I mean, I learned...
And Cameron Crowe.
Oh, yeah.
As a director, that's, I mean, amazing.
And one of the most amazing human beings. And really...
I met his mom.
You did?
Just before I forget, I met Cameron Crowe's mom. I had a job where we would do screenings for movies. And, like, I would help organize them. Like, you know, people would come down and then we would get the feedback.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so people would come and they would watch this movie, and it was like like a test.
Yeah, like a focus group
situation. A focus group.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I would help organize them. And one of the movies was Jerry Maguire. And on it was in San Diego, and maybe his mom lived there or something. She came to the thing.
Cool, that's so cool.
And and she's actually in Jerry Maguire.
Is
Cameron
she?
Crowe's mom is in Jerry Maguire because I saw her. This is so random. This is how my brain works, by the way. It just kind of goes like this.
It's a fun story, though.
Yeah, it is a fun story.
Yeah.
And I remember watching Jerry Maguire, and there's a scene at the end where it's all the scene, right? Where, like, you know, you complete me. You had me at hello. And she is one of the women in this, like, women's group thing with Renee Zellweger and stuff. Yeah. But anyway, so that's cool. So we're basically, you know, we're connected. We're both born in the 1900s, and we have Cameron Crowe.
And we have a Cameron Crowe connection.
So okay, so now you're on Aloha, and that was how long after?
Just a couple of months.
Wow, that's pretty amazing too.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So now you're working with Cameron Crowe, Bradley Cooper. I mean, these are just, it's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, well, what I was saying before we started rolling, I guess, was that when I was 13, I had no idea who Liam Neeson was.
Right.
And I remember I got this call back for Aloha, and Cameron Crowe flew to New York to meet with me in person. And I remember my mom was like, it's Cameron Crowe. And I went, who's Cameron Crowe?
Yeah. Yeah.
And she was like, Cameron Crowe? And I was like, I'm 13. I have no idea who Cameron Crowe is.
Right.
And, it ended up being obviously a great audition and an amazing experience. One of the most amazing and probably the most amazing experience I've had as an actor.
Wow. And that's a lot, considering you were the lead on a show for multiple seasons.
Which was also a great experience.
Yeah, but so what was it about being on that set, on the Aloha set? And obviously the movie itself, it didn't necessarily do well.
No.
It didn't do well, but you never know, right? It's such a crapshoot. Art is such a fascinating thing.
Yes. Because
it's so subjective and there's so many moving pieces. But regardless, Bradley Cooper, Cameron Crowe, Emma Stone, right? I mean, all these amazing people. So you had this experience, but what was it about it that just still to this day, which is pretty impressive, made it the best experience?
I mean, there was so much. I got to film in Hawaii for 4 months.
Not bad.
Yeah. Cameron really made it a point to try and immerse all of us in Hawaiian culture as much as possible. And we did a whole month of rehearsing before we started shooting. And he, everything was paid for.
Wow, that's a lot.
And he really wanted us all to get to know each other. He really wanted to, do as many immersive experiences into Hawaiian culture as possible so that it felt a bit more organic. And, we did some incredible things as a cast. I remember we did an experience where there is, I believe, I could totally be incorrect, and I should probably have done my research.
Nobody will fact check this.
No one. There is a chief or a king, and he was in the movie. I was too young to really absorb that, but he did a whole blessing ceremony with all of us, where we woke up at 3:00 in the morning. And we, all of us, the whole cast and crew, held hands, and we went into the ocean as he told us this chant to chant. And we ate, raw fish afterwards, and I'm sure there's, a name for it and everything. But it was a beautiful experience. And so getting to do things like that and really working with a director who was an actor's director.
Yes.
Was incredible.
Can you talk about, because I really feel that there are certain directors, and you can see them through time, or I have a lot of my clients are young clients, and the difference from set to set in terms of the director. Can you tell me what it was about Cameron Crowe that made him? Because clearly a lot of his films have young actors in them.
Yes.
And he seems to really understand that. Like, what was it about that that makes him so good?
He didn't care how long he shot for. You know, I think a lot of directors are under a lot of pressure as far as, you know, money or time is money, and you know, getting the day done as quickly as possible, and that's understandable in a lot of circumstances. But he wrote the film, he directed the film, it was his baby, and he didn't care if we did as many takes as we wanted. He really got, like I said, in that month of rehearsing, he really sat down with each of us and understood our process. And I did scenes with him where the camera would be handheld and he'd be under the camera the whole time. And it would be like, I did a wordless scene, and the whole time he was underneath the camera talking me through my character's thoughts and things that I noticed. And that taught me a lot about what I respond to and how to develop my process as an actor. So getting to study under some of the most amazing people in Hollywood totally shaped who I am as an actor today.
This is so cool.
It's cool.
It's so cool. It's
cool.
such a cool trajectory.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about magic a little bit. I'm a magician. Oh, no, I'm not.
I was like, really? Oh.
That'd be funny, though.
Yeah.
No, I'm not a magician. But I do love the word magic, and I want to talk about that because you referenced magical. And I think sometimes we think of magical as this thing that's cheesy or whatever. It's just, but I actually think magic is one of the best words to use when you have an experience that cannot really be defined, and there's not a good word for it.
Yeah.
Because when I think of magic, I think of something that is beyond our understanding. It's beyond comprehension. It's not tangible, but you can feel it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it lights us up. It connects us in a way beyond anything we can really fathom. But it's real.
Absolutely.
And I think, so in terms of that word magical, if you choose to use it again in the future, use it, don't apologize for it. Use it, and I think, because I think it is magical. And like what you talked about, going out into the ocean with the cast, and that's magical. I mean, all of these things, you've really kind of been blessed with a lot of magical experiences already at this young stage, these early stages of your career as a young actor. Why do you think all that happened? Why do you think you got all that magic?
I don't know. I really don't. I think I suffer from that a lot, where I'm like, why is this happening? I don't understand. I think it was just truly my gut telling me this is what I needed to do. And, you know, the opportunities came after that, after I sort of was like, I know that this is where I'm meant to be. That doesn't mean I haven't questioned as I've gotten older and as I've become an adult, is this what I want to do? You know, I've certainly had my moments, but yeah, I just think it's a gut thing. It's the best way to describe it.
I'm very intrigued by intuition, and there's a wonderful book called Blink by Malcolm Gladwell, who's a beautiful author. He is a true storyteller. He just the way he presents complex ideas in a very fun, magical kind of way. But this book, Blink, that talks a lot about intuition and our gut, that the blink reaction, and how, if sharpened and practiced, it can be more effective than analyzing.
Oh, 100%.
And it's sort of interesting because I don't think our culture necessarily appreciates how powerful it can be.
Mm-hmm.
Following your gut, following your instincts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading a book right now called The Rise of Superman that's all about flow state. And it talks in particular about extreme athletes and how they get to these flow states when they are totally dialed in.
Yeah.
And it's at a point where it actually turns off the prefrontal cortex, which is our thinking part of our brain,
Mm-hmm.
and kicks into more of this sort of unconscious thing happening, yet you're totally aware.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this really weird place for the brain to be, but it's
Yeah.
also where neuroscientists and neurobiologists, where they believe we are the absolute best that we can be.
That's so fascinating, actually. Wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And if you talk to all these guys, they talk about a voice. It's very common.
Mm-hmm.
They say, I was listening to this voice. The voice was telling me. And if I just listened to the voice, and these are like big wave surfers, skateboarders, like
Yeah.
it's, and I wonder, we'll never know, but I wonder if at a young age, for some reason, and maybe it had to do with your mom. I know you mentioned that she was a professional dancer. Maybe she was instilling some of these things, but it seems to me, if I was going to take an absolutely uneducated guess on you growing up, it seems like you were in touch with that voice. You were in touch with that intuition, like you said, gut intuition, whatever we want to call it.
Yeah.
And you listened to it.
Yeah. I'm a huge believer in intuition myself. And in the times in my life where I haven't listened to it, it's always steered me wrong. I don't always get really strong intuition, but when I do, it's very strong. Yeah, I mean, I think as a kid in this industry, it's in some ways easier to listen to your intuition because there's so much innocence and there is more magic, if you will. And so I never found that challenging when I was younger doing this. I think I find it more challenging now as an adult.
Yeah, sure. That thinking brain, it gets in our way a lot more.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I think it happens, and then so I'm 44, and I feel like now it's going the other way. So I think it went that way. I think maybe teenage years start to really kick in
They do.
for many of us, and then we're overthinking, very thinking, and then that kind of continues. And then for me, it was like, okay, then in my 30s, it was like, hey, what do I really want to do though?
Yeah.
Not what do I have to do? What do I need to do? What do I want to do? What would make me the most happy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's healthy to question.
Yeah.
I've questioned a bunch, like I said, so I think it's healthy to do that.
When the way you referenced intuition, you said I don't remember exactly what you said, but you said intuition is a very important part of your life, or it's something. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that I think everyone has it. I think some people are more in touch with it than others, but I think it is our inner voice in so many ways. Like I said, I don't always get very strong intuition, but it is amazing how my intuition, my inner voice has really steered me in the right direction, or has saved me from bad situations, or I'm not a very spiritually in touch person at all, or religious person, but I am a huge believer in trusting yourself and trusting your gut, trusting your instincts, which I think is the whole point of acting. But
That's true.
It all comes full circle.
That's true.
Yeah.
Actually, that's true. I wasn't even thinking about it from that perspective, from the actual craft, because there's so much more to it than just the craft.
Right.
But okay, I want to keep diving in on this because I'm interested in it. So when you also mentioned your intuition had stopped you from doing things that, do you recall anything in particular, anything that you could share?
Yeah, I mean, I've had intuitive feelings about people, about people who have come and gone in my life, even just as a person, or feeling like, oh, I feel unsafe in this situation. I think you'll hear people in general, but women get the sixth sense of certain situations make you feel just a little uncomfortable. So I think that does exist to some extent for everyone, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
If so, listen to it. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the answer to your question.
Yeah. No, yeah, you feel like it's actually like protected you in ways, in situations. And there is some interesting research on women and intuition versus men.
Yeah.
And how, because with men, the ego is much stronger, and this sort of sense of needing to be right, it doesn't allow us to listen to our intuition as much, or it makes it more challenging for a man. So it's interesting that you said you don't really have any religion, or you're not spiritual yet. And because I wasn't raised with any specific religion. I did have a mom who was definitely spiritual in ways.
Yeah.
But even though you say you're not spiritual, I think if they were to listen to this conversation about intuition and magic, they would go, "Oh, but she is that." So, like, what are your thoughts on spirituality?
I respect it so much. I really do. I have people in my life that are spiritual in many different ways, religious in many different ways, and I really respect everyone's beliefs. For myself personally, I grew up religious. Like I'm from New Jersey. I grew up in an Italian family, Catholic school, that kind of thing. I think is very cliche, but that's how I grew up, and so it's not that I, don't feel like I have all the answers to life and everything, but I sort of just try to live my life in a way that I feel like that is in alignment with my own morals and my own values, and I try to be the best person that I can be. But that's sort of the extent of, I guess, my spirituality. And I do believe in energy to some extent too. Like I said, mentioning intuition, there are some times that I get bad feelings from people or bad feelings from situations, and I think everyone gives off different energy. So I don't really know. I sort of just go with the flow, I guess, as far as that conversation is concerned.
Yeah. I think it's a spirituality, religion, life, purpose, all these components fascinate me a lot. I mean, it's definitely, I think some people are more seekers. And so it's less about knowing and more about curiosity.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that's sort of what I fall into. And so I'm very curious about what it's all about.
Me too.
Yeah. So I guess for me, that would be sort of my spirituality. Do you feel like there is, you talked about energy. Do you feel like there is something like that is greater than yourself, or are you more like I am creating it all personally, or do you feel like there is some sort of like interconnectivity? I know this is going down kind of an interesting, but we are getting meta. Yeah. But I think it's interesting, especially because for someone like you who's talked a lot about intuition, and that intuition has steered you. It's in years wise, not a very long time, but in terms of what you've done in those years, it's a lot of stuff. And so it's interesting. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's really subjective. Spirituality and religion, it's very subjective, and it's really personal. And I think I am defining that as I get older. I'm about to be 23 on Monday.
Happy birthday.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So I'm still so young, and I've obviously gone through a huge transition, like growing up religious and sort of not being so connected to that. And now that I'm older, I'm sort of also very curious. I'm also, I agree that I'm constantly, I read a thing, and like I said, I'm surrounded by a really religiously diverse group of people in my life. So, and I respect it so much. So yeah, it does make me curious. I feel the same way. I'm very curious.
Yeah, it's a fun place to be. There's a guy named Richard Warner who, if you ever have an opportunity to work with him, meet him, chat with him, he works a lot with Erica Arvold. you know Arvold Casting? So they have a training program that they do, and so they're educators as well. They're instructors. But Richard Warner I've brought him up multiple times just because he's one of the most fascinating people I've ever met. He's in his 70s, I think, now, and he was the head of acting for 30 years at University of Virginia. And he always said he had this acting philosophy, which is the philosophy. The HMMMM, you know, and he is a very well-trained actor, but he said, the most interesting philosophy for me is that of the curiosity.
Interesting,
and not having an answer. I'm more interested in the exploration than I am getting to a solution.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that that's a fun way to look at everything from a sense of curiosity. I think it also, obviously, all this stuff we're saying in terms of life, it's so relative to acting.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
In terms of, being curious and, like you said, respecting other people, empathetic, and then also intuition in terms of your acting. So with your acting, that intuition, obviously for you in your life, you've trusted it. Tried to. And you've found that when you did trust it, it's led you in the right direction. Tell me a little bit about intuition with acting, and tell me a little bit about your process with acting.
You know, I think being an actor is a lot about trusting yourself. And a lot about trusting your instincts. You hear that word a lot, instincts, in being an actor. But, and it's a lot about empathy, 100%. I think in doing what I do, you have to have empathy for a character, you know? And I do my best to put my heart into each character. It doesn't always work, but it's a very deeply emotional experience to do this as a career, because so much of my personal life reflects who I am as an actor too, if that makes sense.
Yeah, talk about that. What do you mean?
I just think being as emotionally open as I can be in my life. I have a really great teacher who always told me that, that wearing your heart on your sleeve is painful, but being emotionally open and being empathetic and being curious about others, is not only a good thing to do as a human being, but also makes you a better actor. That's the best way I can put that.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I like this heart-centric approach. Mm-hmm. I know when people say, what do you look for when you're looking for a new coach or what have you, I say, well, first and foremost, they've got to be heart-centric.
Yeah.
It's got to feel as though they are following their heart. They're trusting in that, which it seems for you with your acting, that's a big part of it as well.
It is.
If you were to think for a moment, what has been the most challenging part of this process for you?
Just
acting.
My career?
Yeah. Whether it's a time, whether it's a specific component to it, whether it's a multitude of things, what do you think what's the stuff that people don't get to see, or what is the thing for you that you say, okay, this is probably the hardest part about this, or if there was a specific instance that you had to overcome?
Facing rejection is probably one of the toughest parts of being an actor. And it's the parts that really no one sees, is how much rejection you face. Because, like I said, I do my best to put as much of my heart into a character as possible. And so when it doesn't go your way, or when it's sort of cut off after the audition process, it's really hurtful. I've cried so many times. I've literally felt heartbroken over roles that I've lost in films or whatever projects that I've lost. It's broken my heart for a period of time. And that's really difficult, dealing with that. I still face that to this day. I've been going through it. I got off of my show about 6 months ago, and I focused a lot on myself personally and my life personally, and I'm just getting back into auditioning now, and I'm remembering the whole process, and it's more rejection than acceptance.
Right.
And that's hard, to readjust to again. So.
Yeah, the rejection. Was there one in particular that stands out where you go, oh man, that, like, was there one that just, with, I don't want to open up your broken heart.
Yeah, right.
But was there one, and then how did you, and so I don't want to just dwell on it, but was there one that stands out where you went, oh God, that was a heartbreaker, and then secondly, to follow that up, how did you deal with that?
There's been many, so I can't pick just one that was the most heartbreaking, but one of
Top 10.
It's top 10. One of the many opportunities that I feel a little gutted about was I did a chemistry read for with Tom Holland for the Spider-Man franchise.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
The new one. That one. Heard of that guy. Yeah, I was 16 and I did that, and I guess I got close, but and I was not right for so many reasons. I was just too young. I was so nervous. I totally bombed the audition. I had like a sinus infection. It was like a really bad sequence of events that, like, I flew out there and I did this thing, and I don't even know if it was a chemistry read. It was just like a callback or something. But I got very close, and it just couldn't have gone more wrong. And I told that story to one of my coworkers on Legacies, like, recently, and he was like, that really sucks. And I was like, thanks. And he was like, yeah, I don't know how you're even standing here right now telling me this story. And I was like, thanks.
He's like,
so
but
much.
I feel a lot better now.
That's exactly what he said, because he had lost out on a role. And I was like, I'm going to tell you something about one of my biggest losses. And he was like, I really feel better after you told me that. And I was like, good. Yeah, so that was a sad opportunity to lose out on.
So what was the process of mending the broken heart?
I'm still brokenhearted about it. Are you kidding me?
It's still
never
broken.
healed. No.
It's still wide open and broken.
Yeah, no. Tears. I cry a lot in this whole process because,
That's good,
again,
yeah.
it is good. I mean, like, I don't think I'll ever stop, or I hope I'll never stop, but it is hard. It's definitely difficult to lose out on things that you love.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like little deaths.
It is. Little heartbreaks.
Heartbreaking deaths.
It's grief in a weird way.
Yeah.
And even, like, dealing with a life post Legacies, which was the project that I did the longest.
Sure.
And in really, I guess, a really transformative period of my life, from 17 to 22. I grew up so much on that show, and so in redefining my life afterwards, it has been a process of grief. I was used to working an insane amount of hours every week with the same people, and that it was difficult to just go, oh my God, my whole life just changed. Like, literally everything just changed in a phone call of the show's been canceled. And we had a very long run, and I was very happy with how it ended, and closing off 5 years, that was a long time, but it's still been a huge shift in my life. So I think you're always kind of going through, like, falling in love and emotionally investing and grieving. It's like a never-ending process.
Falling in love, emotionally investing, and then grieving.
And then grieving, no matter what.
Yeah, it's sort of like, it's like, you're born, you live, and you die. And, and then the process, we'll find out.
We'll find out.
That's a pretty wild thing. Okay, so 17 to 22. Mm-hmm. So at that point, about a quarter of your life was on a show.
Yes.
With a similar cast.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Lee, by the way, I want to have him on the podcast one day.
You should.
He came in here, and I remember him, he was taping some auditions,
mm-hmm.
one of which he was singing and playing the keyboard.
Yeah.
And, like, we're all watching the and just going, this guy, like, he would light up the whole studio.
Yeah, he's
when he
very
came
talented.
in. And so
he was the actor I was telling you about that was like, oh, that makes me feel so much better that you lost out on that. Yeah.
Well, now he's got to come on the show so we can see
yeah.
his perspective on it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's that. So I bring up him because he's somebody that I know from the studio, and
mm-hmm.
but being around people like that for so many years, and the crew and everything else, and being a kid when you started, I mean, a minor.
Yeah.
And that's got to be a wild thing, because that was your life.
It was my life. I at our like very last cast dinner, as we were all kind of saying goodbye to each other, I like, we were all giving sort of speeches, and I got really emotional because I was like, I can't believe you guys trusted a 17-year-old girl to be number one on a show. I had no idea what that took, and I never thought that I could do it. But looking back 5 years later, you know, I did that, and it feels like it went by like that. And yeah, it's completely changed my life. It's changed who I am in so many ways. But in other ways, I'm like, okay, now I get the freedom to be Danielle a little bit, and to bring my life back to balance, and to, you know, be back with my friends and my family. And I've been in Atlanta here, taping here, and, you know, doing it because I was here for the show. But it's like, okay, now I can move on from that chapter of my life. But it's a huge change. It's been a huge change.
Yeah. Yeah. So you'd mentioned your mom earlier. What's the relationship like, or what was it like with your mom? That's a fun smile. I'm always interested in the nonverbal response whenever I ask a question.
I love my mom.
But yes, you said she was a professional dancer. So in what capacity? And tell me a little bit about that.
She's a badass. She was a Rockette for a long time.
Sweet.
She was in so many Broadway shows.
Okay.
Throughout her career, and she danced until she was in her early 40s. She had a very long career as a dancer.
Cool.
And then she had me, and then she was like, well, I guess I can't.
Well, you took the baton.
The same way, I guess.
Yeah, not so much with dance. That was
dance.
Just more, what was that, 3 to 9?
That was 3 to 13.
3 to 13.
I remember the conversation where I sat down and I went, I know you're a Rockette, but I can't do this anymore.
I'm done.
And she was like, okay.
Fair enough.
So
what was it like? Yeah, what was it like?
Yeah.
Growing up and...
She's had a really amazing life in so many ways. She's traveled all over the world. She's worked with really incredible people. She knows everybody. She has so many friends. I can't even keep track of all of her friends. But I mean, I was fortunate enough to have two parents. My father's in the industry as well, who were in the industry.
In what capacity?
He was a singer and an actor.
Okay.
Also a dancer, I suppose. He sang opera a bit in his career, early in his career, and then did a lot of off-Broadway shows and national tours. So having two parents that, while they were more on the musical theater side of it, they at least knew, like, okay, you get an agent, you get a manager, and you go on auditions, and this is what this process entails. Definitely helped, but it's not really like I was able to capitalize off of any connection. I mean, I came into this industry with no connections at all.
Except for that one person who was taking those pictures.
Except for that one person who took those pictures.
Slinging them
Shout
out
out to you. I don't remember your name, but thanks.
The one who said, she's got a good face.
Yeah, I know. It's just like...
We don't know who she is.
We don't know. No.
And without her...
Truly, without her, I don't know if the thought would have ever occurred.
So if you want to look at the camera and just say thank you to that.
Thank you. I'm so sorry I don't remember your name, but I was a kid. And I didn't even know what I was doing.
You were 3.
I was 8.
Oh, you were 8 at that point. Okay,
8,
got it. Oh,
right.
3's
kid.
Still pretty young.
Listen.
Yeah.
At 8 years old, my parents were also getting a divorce. I was going through a lot.
Okay. I think she's fine.
Yeah, okay.
Whoever she is, if she ever sees this. Got it. So you're going through that at that time, too. Mm-hmm. Yep, I went through that as well.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Divorce is fascinating.
So fascinating.
Yeah. I'm never going to get divorced. My wife and I agreed. If we get to that point, one of us will kill the other one.
Oh, good.
So if one of us dies, and they don't...
It's really healthy.
It's better, right?
Yeah.
They say that anyway, until death do you. I don't think we actually said, but
right.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
You know? So that way you do it, and you go, okay, now we can... Anyway.
Different strokes, different folks.
Yeah, it's, divorce is wild. It's a bummer. It sucks.
Yeah.
But as a kid, I wonder, maybe your craft and your artistry gave you a place to go.
Yeah. I definitely grew up a lot quicker than I think a lot of my peers at the time. And that's not to say I am better than them. It was in no way that. It was just that I went through a lot with that, and also with developing a career at a very young age. It almost isolated me in a lot of ways growing up, and so I was sort of forced to grow up a bit quicker. And I did not come from money at all. And so I had to very early on begin working and begin financially taking care of myself and my family. And so I think it definitely all contributed to a lot of the gratitude I feel today being where I am now.
Yeah. So coming back to your mom a little bit, so she's this Rockette. What was the dynamic there? So she was the one taking you to auditions and stuff. Mm-hmm. What was it like? What was the vibe like with Danielle and mom? Her Rockette, was she like always in like some kind of like sexy outfit, like some?
No, she was not. She and I used to fight because I remember I'd be like, I don't want to go on this audition. She was like, you're going to the audition. And I was like, but I don't want to go on the audition. And I'm very thankful for her now, obviously, that she pushed me to do it. But yeah, it was her. It was her and my grandma as well.
Oh, cool.
They're really the ones who like mostly raised me. And so, yeah, they would drive me into the city, which was about, I don't know, an hour from where we lived, and multiple times a week. So she gave up a lot of her life to dedicate, to me and to my career. So we have a lot of great stories. Yeah. One day I'll write about them, but
yeah, you
a lot
should.
of great stories going into the city.
Anyone in particular stand out? Any stories that come to mind where it was like wacky or crazy or fun?
I mean, it was like, I can just recall the amount, like, we couldn't afford to get a GPS, and so we would print out at the library MapQuest directions of where to go into the city, and we had, constantly, we were always lost, always late to auditions, constantly screaming at each other, no, you're going this way, it was, just always chaos and never easy, and oh my God, so many of those experiences. And then finally, after I got my first job, we could afford to buy a GPS. And it became so much easier.
Life is easier with the GPS.
MapQuest at the library.
MapQuest from the library.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. Well, I will say this. I'm sure because there are a lot of parents of students who I work with who watch the podcast and listen to it. So this will probably make them feel good. Yeah. At least they have GPS. And when they're yelling and screaming at each other or telling their kid you have to go to this audition, they can go, oh, okay, yeah, yeah, we can relate.
It's a commitment on the parents' part too. It really is. I saw that with my mom, and I think it goes unnoticed, but it's a commitment to the parent.
Totally.
For sure.
Totally. A friend of mine, her name's Bonnie Wallace, and her daughter is Dove Cameron, who probably. I guess when you were growing up, she was probably on some shows. Did you watch that? I mean, you were too busy. You were you had a career. You didn't spend much time just sitting and watching TV, probably.
I know. I watched a lot, actually.
Did you?
I've met her.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I've met her once before.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, her mom is. It was really fascinating hearing the journey, and and because they were living in Washington, and then. Just taking the plunge to go to LA, and what a wild world it's been and wild journey. But also I remember we did a seminar together and a parent said, do you feel bad at all the fact that your kid didn't get to have a normal childhood? And it was such a cool response because she said, I don't know if the normal childhood would have been normal for my kid.
Interesting.
And she said she was different. And so, for parents sometimes who are like, am I taking them away from this or that? I think we're all on our own sort of journey. And when she responded with that, I thought that was a very cool perspective in that, for instance, someone like you, seeing what you've done, getting to hear about what you've done, and just even seeing you now on the precipice of 23, it seems like you took the exact path you should have taken. I mean, right? Don't you kind of feel like that path? Is there any part of you that wishes you had a different childhood?
No. It definitely was not conventional, and I grew up in a small town, but it was in New Jersey, so it's not like it was totally unheard of because we were so close to the city. Yeah. To do it, but. It was not met with, open arms in a lot of ways. And yeah, I mean, of course, like, we all face challenges, and I face challenges with that. But I wouldn't have had it any other way. I really wouldn't have. I now at 23, I'm like, you know, is this what I want to do? And I go, I can't picture myself doing anything else. Nothing else excites me in the same way. So I don't know what would have happened. I don't know where I would have been had I not done this and had the child that I had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, you know, when you said I wouldn't have changed anything, I don't think there are very many kids who could say that. I think for a lot of kids, I wouldn't have gone to this school. I wouldn't have been in this class. I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
yeah.
and I think that's really cool. I think that's one of the coolest parts about, for me, getting to work with younger actors, because I don't think we give young people quite enough credit. Like, we get older and we think we have more answers.
Interesting, yeah.
Where, like you said, when you're younger, you do have this intuition, and you haven't been necessarily jaded by so much of society. And you haven't been told time and time again, this is what you have to do. You know, I always like the concept of could versus should, and how should limits our creativity, and it limits our ability to think outside of the box. But if you say could, suddenly the options open.
Yeah.
Like, what could you do with this? What could you do? Even with, like, experimental learning and things, or experiential learning, where it's much more, okay, let's see what could happen if we did this, versus you should do this.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, look, if we look at society as a whole, it's not like you're like, we figured it out.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can look at society, and you can look at a lot of these components and say, no, maybe we don't really know anything, and maybe we should explore a little bit more. Maybe we should listen to kids a little bit more. Maybe we should allow kids to have more of an input in what's happening, instead of saying we need to stay confined in these ways. Yeah. So, okay. So you get to, so there was Aloha, and then what, so you were, how old at Aloha?
14.
14. So now we've got the 3 years in between that and Legacies. And so you had some other projects. What were you just thinking about?
I was like, oh yeah, that was only 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very short period of time. And so in that time, what was happening in that time?
I did some other projects. I did a couple of independent films. I went a period of time without working. I went like a year without working, and thought I was never going to work again. And I was like, oh my God, you know. So I did some independent films, and then I did an Amazon series. And then I did Wonder.
Yeah, that's right. I saw that. That must have been fun.
That was fun. That was amazing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's such a cool story. It's such a sweet story.
It really is. Yeah, it's definitely an important story.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then I got Originals, which turned into Legacies. Right.
Yeah. So with Originals, when you initially booked that, was there any part of you that was like, oh, this has the potential to be something really big, or was it more of like, okay, this might be just sort of a short stint?
Yeah, that was the expectation. I definitely thought it was just going to be 1 year, and I think when I signed the contract, it was like, 1 year on Originals, and then the possibility of a spin-off, and so I had to say yes to that before I even signed, and none of us really thought it was going to happen. I was just sort of expecting a 1 year situation, and then obviously Legacies became Legacies, and it was really unexpected.
Yeah. What was that like to suddenly have, because up to that point, you hadn't had anything that was that much of a commitment in your life. Yeah. What was it like going through that at that point? Was it good? Was there a sense of like, oh, I'm kind of like stuck to this?
Yeah, I think, having done it for 5 years, it definitely limited my ability to audition for other things, and even just be in practice. I was not in practice as much with the craft. But I think the most unexpected part of it was when I signed on to do this role, I hadn't realized the fan base attached to it, and I had no idea. And I remember when it was announced, I gained like thousands and thousands of followers in the span of a couple of hours, and it was like, I remember I broke down crying because I was like, I was not expecting this.
You just cry. I love how much you cry.
I cry a lot.
I cry a lot too. I cry at like little things.
I
like,
love to cry.
Me too. Crying's great.
It's great. It's really healthy.
It is healthy.
Yeah.
Those tears they're not meant to stay in there.
No.
They're meant to flood.
Absolutely.
Cool. Yeah. So you got fans and then started crying.
I cried, yeah. As I do. And so, yeah, that was a huge shift, is getting, like, and I wouldn't even consider myself to be super famous in any regard, but it was getting recognized on the street, you know, the first couple of times that happened, and response from fans, you know, good and bad. That was a lot to deal with, especially at 17.
Yeah.
That was hard. And I've sort of grown up in front of people's eyes in those 5 years. I've really grown up. Like, I feel like no one really talks about the second puberty you go through as being in your early 20s, but you do, or at least I did. And yeah, people watched me grow up. So,
yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, good and bad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What for you in terms of the show, what are the things that you miss the most? And I know it hasn't been that long, but like what are some of the components?
The camaraderie. I have, you know, I've made some great friends from the show and from the crew. The crew has been really instrumental in that whole journey in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, I think having that sort of community, and just honestly getting to be in front of a camera all day. I think it's something, it becomes so like, okay, I gotta go to work, I'm so tired, I gotta go to work, and you know, there are some moments you don't like because of just the toll it takes doing a show like that, but looking at it at the big picture, it's like, no, I get to do something really cool every day. I get to be in front of a camera every day. I get to, and some days were better than others, some scenes I was able to give to more than others, and I think, you know, having been a number one on that and having worked a lot, I really understood that you have to, in some ways, you have to protect your instrument. And so knowing where to give and where to go, okay, I can give myself a little bit of grace on this. So yeah, those are like, it's a lot that I learned.
Can you talk about that? Because I think that's a fascinating thing to talk about the instrument and talk about protecting your instrument. And can you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, you are your instrument as an actor, and I always, to me, it feels like a muscle in a lot of ways. And I remember I would say, like, okay, I've like done a slew of emotional scenes, or I, you know, am physically really, really exhausted, and I need to give this emotional and physical muscle time to rest and recover before it can recharge to give again. And I think it's really important to just go, like, I'm not going to beat myself up, because I've had scenes on that show where I'm not proud of, because I was just like, so, you know, doing a million things, and I didn't know how to handle it in the beginning, especially. But yeah, it's an instrument, and it's delicate, and it's fragile, and it's important to protect.
Yeah. So speaking of that instrument, yeah, I remember somebody saying at one point that there are a variety of different types of artists. There are a variety of different arts. Mm-hmm. But the thing about acting is that it is a full body art form.
Yeah, that's true.
Every piece of you is coming into play. Mm-hmm. And then if it's a wide shot, we literally see it all.
Yeah.
And if it's something, you know, like Legacies, there's going to be some physicality, like literal physicality. But even if it's an extreme close-up, everything your body is coming through your eyes.
Yeah.
And in terms of taking care of that muscle, that sort of full body acting muscle, this vessel that you have, what are some things that you've done either during the show or what you currently do to make sure that you are firing on all cylinders?
I'd say, like, truly just self-care. Like, it does sound a little bit cliche, but self-care is, like, it's so important. And whatever that looks like for the actor, for the individual.
Well, what does it look like for you? What does self-care mean?
Some alone time to sort of recharge and reconnect with myself. I like to read. I like to, do yoga. Like, I like to go on walks. I like to spend time with my dog. But also spending time with my loved ones. That's really, really important to, like, ground me again. And make me feel like, okay, I am a person that's outside of this character, and I can take a break from hope for a second and be Danielle. Especially being so far away from everyone, right? Like, being in Atlanta to New York, New Jersey. It was hard for 5 years. There was a lot I missed out on. So connecting with my life and connecting with myself, and, I would go for massages, or I would meditate, or I would do things like that to sort of ground myself again. That's what it looks like for me. But I think prioritizing self-care and giving yourself forgiveness and grace is, like, the best way you can navigate something like that, I guess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's interesting that you said self-care. Like, it sounds cliche, but you're not much good if you're not self-cared for.
Absolutely.
And it is funny, right? Because I like to get a massage once a month, a 2-hour massage. Mm-hmm. And anytime, hey, can you do? And I get, whenever I have to say, oh, I can't make it because I have a massage, there's always like this, this like part where it's just, oh, well, that's,
I know.
And it's like, so, it is this thing in society or whatever. Like, if I say I'm gonna go grind, and do something for, well, then it's good. Then we're good. Yeah. But God forbid you want to just go and hang out with your family, or go, like, so for me, I have every Thursday is Daddy Day, and I don't, and I don't take any sessions. I hang with my girls.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and it's because, like you said, that charges me, and of course I want to be there for my girls as well. But I think that's the thing in society. It's like we need to fill the well. Yeah. We have to, I think that word recharge is such a good word. And even like what you said, whether it's just spending some time with your family, meditating, going for a walk. Mm-hmm. And in fact, there's a lot of data that talks about just going for a walk and the cognitive benefits. Mm-hmm. Psychologically, how good it is for you. Albert Einstein often would talk about how his best ideas would come when he was walking. Sure. And I think so much of that is just because you're getting out of the rat race. You're getting out of the grind. Mm-hmm. And so often for people, it's like hustle. It's like it's like the word busy. Yeah. Right? It's so celebrated.
100%.
And it's this thing where, you talk to people and they go, how you doing? It's like, oh, real busy. Oh, great. You don't have any free time for anything, huh? Mm-hmm. Nothing. Oh, I'm just...
It is so true. I mean, like, I think even as an actor, like, I'm constantly getting asked, what's next? What's the next project? And it comes from a good place, of course. But there are so many times, like right now I'm at this place in my career where I am auditioning and I am, pursuing things, but nothing's next right now. I really wanted to give myself time. I took a month and I traveled a little bit and I spent time with friends and family, like I said, and that's enough for me right now. I just got off of a 5-year thing. So
a quarter of your life.
A quarter of my life. Yes. I used to say that all the time. I was like, 5 years is a lot for a 21, 22-year-old. Yes. That is a whole quarter of my life. Yeah. So yeah, that question of what's your next project? What's next? I get asked all the time. I'm like, right now, just getting rest and getting an adequate amount of sunlight. That's next right now.
Getting an adequate amount of sunlight.
Yeah, I know that sounds a little bit.
That's a sort of, it's very specific.
It's very specific. Yeah, I was severely deficient in vitamin D, actually, because, you're working on a soundstage where you don't see the light of day.
And you're on a show about vampires. So, yeah, no sun for you.
No. And I would, especially, like, we would film over the winter mostly. I mean, the summer as well, but, like, mostly over the winter. And it gets dark really early and light out later. And so I would get to work and it'd be dark. And then I'd walk out of from a dark soundstage into the dark of night. And I would be like, there have been a consecutive 5 days that I have not seen the sun. I think that I did reach like a 5-day streak where I was like, I don't remember spending more than like 10 minutes outside in sunlight.
Right.
Yeah, I know it's a really weird story, but
That's interesting though. Yeah, it's important.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, like I said, I'm always trying to so I'm kind of like a crazy person when it comes to figuring out how to hack life a little bit in some capacity.
Okay.
But one of the things they talk about, but I think my theys are good theys. It's good people with good information.
Uh-huh.
Is when you first wake up, going outside
Yeah.
and letting the sun actually hit your eyes.
Yeah, my doctor told me that.
See?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm right.
You are.
Yeah, there
You're
we go.
right.
Yeah. Your
Yes.
doctor said it. Mm-hmm. So something like that, though, getting sun is something we need it. Our bodies want it.
Yeah.
And there's a direct correlation to not being outside and not getting sun and being depressed and having higher levels of anxiety and stress and what have you.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that you kind of spent all that time in a lot of darkness, which obviously there was a lot of light in terms of what you were getting to do, but
Yeah.
literal darkness.
Yes, and I mean, like, of course, a lot of careers involve being indoors all day and overnight shifts, and like people do. It's definitely not just unique to me, but it was something that I was like, oh wow, I should probably take care of this.
So you're gonna get some sun.
I've been getting some sun.
Where are you getting sun at?
I've been going on daily walks.
Ooh,
That's
you and your
nice.
walks.
Me and my walks. Well, I have a dog,
You
so
have a dog.
He likes to walk.
I think this is the first podcast where we don't have my dog here.
Really?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I hate that. I really hate that.
I know you just looked so upset.
Like-
Her name's Georgette. You'll meet her at some point.
That's nice.
She's at the groomer.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
I
yeah.
understand.
So she's getting,
She's getting her self-care.
She's getting her self
Getting her
care.
self-care.
So then I'm not going to ask you what's next in terms of job wise, but what about in life and stuff? What's like on the horizon?
Yeah, I'm currently in school, so I've been doing that. That's been a
Okay.
huge part of my life for the
School.
last 5 years. Mm-hmm.
And what's involved with that? I didn't do a lot of school.
That's okay.
It's okay.
It's really okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've accepted it.
yeah, you can be very successful in life without going to school, but there's also, I respect school as well.
You want to learn?
I do. I just enjoy it. Like, I really do. I'm getting my master's in business. So I've been doing that for a year. I have a year left. So that takes up a good portion of my time.
Yeah, master's in business.
Yeah, that's been...
I love how you just kind of like sprinkle that on top. You're like talking about, and I'm kind of just doing this master's thing
Yeah.
in business too.
I am, yeah. I enjoy it. I got my undergrad in business, so I wanted to go further with it because, like I said, I like learning about it. So I'm doing that, and I am currently in the process of moving out of Atlanta.
Oh,
So that's been a full-time job, weirdly.
where are you moving?
Back home.
Oh,
back
you
to
are?
Jersey, yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Family and stuff must be excited. You must be excited.
I'm really excited. Yeah, my friends are thrilled. I've been back and forth a lot the last couple of months, and we finally found a place. And yeah, so I've been doing that and auditioning. Auditioning, training for the auditions. That's really it. Someone's growling. I'm hungry.
Oh, yeah?
Sorry if you can hear that.
I couldn't hear it. Mine was growling earlier, but it was because I ate.
Oh,
I
yeah.
had an avocado and ham and cheese and tomatoes and some chips.
Oh, wow.
Good chips.
Good
The
chips.
Garden of Eden.
Oh, yeah, Garden of Eden chips.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like I think they make a blue corn tortilla chip. I really like.
Great chip.
It's a good chip.
This is a new one though. Try this one. It's a white chip, but it's
Okay.
got like a hint of lime.
Ooh, yeah.
Just a hint.
I do love a hint of lime.
A hint of lime with a
chip.
little avocado, a little
Ooh,
fresh
yeah.
tomato,
Oh, I'm so hungry.
a little
That sounds
fresh
so good.
pepper.
Yeah, it sounds really good. Mm-hmm.
For what it's worth, it was delicious.
I'm sure it was.
But maybe just you can go and get that maybe afterwards.
Yeah,
You
I'm
can
gonna go home and eat.
Yeah, you should do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's see. Let's wrap it up with okay. Future Danielle.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go 44 because that's how old
44.
I know you looked at me like, oh, that's so old. I don't know.
No, it's not.
No, I don't. I feel better than I did at 24.
Yeah.
No
I-
offense to your soon-to-be 23-year-old self.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
But so tell me, what if you're going to paint that picture, not that you want to plan it per se, and I think there's a lot of value, by the way, in just letting go and letting, life, but
Yeah. Absolutely.
what does that look like maybe to you?
Like in answering these kinds of questions, I always feel like looking back on my career, every interview I've ever done is sort of like a little bit of a time capsule of like where I was at that point in my life. So I'm curious when I'm 44 to look back on this and go, this is where I thought I was going to be. And this is where I actually am.
Yeah. You should set a reminder.
For 2044.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to have a family. I would like to have reached a place in my career where, I work consistently and I've done things that I'm really proud of. Traveling, I love to travel. I hope I've done a lot of that. And yeah, I guess being happy, mostly.
Being happy.
Being happy.
I love that. Yeah, I will say it makes sense that you've had the career that you've had. When I had asked about you, my staff, they were like, "You're gonna like her vibe. She's just like very just like good people," and I see that, and it makes sense. You have a poise about you, and a calmness, but a confidence about you that it's palpable, and
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome, and I'm excited to see where your life takes you, and best of luck on your move back home. That's going to be wonderful, thank you so much for sharing everything. It's always, this is always fun for me, but this is especially cool because you were a kid when you started, and now you're an adult. And then, eventually we'll look back at 44 and see how much of that.
I think we should come back in 2044 and do this exact interview again.
I'll be feeling good. I'll be playing a lot of pickleball at that point because I'll be in my 60s, which is in your 60s. You really do. Right now, I currently
you play pickleball.
I'm obsessed.
No, so yeah, I have a lot of people in my family who love pickleball.
So maybe that we'll figure out how to.
It'll be good.
Yeah, we'll bring that together and we'll come back in 22 years.
We'll play pickleball together.
In 22 years.
22 years, yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right.